Good evening, everyone. It is now, I have 6:29 on March 16th, 2021. This is the meeting of the Scituate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I just want to read, in response to Governor Baker's declaration of a public health emergency and the related emergency executive order dated March 12th, 2020, Town of Scituate public meetings shall meet remotely until further notice. This meeting will be recorded by Scituate Community Television and can be viewed live on Scituate Community Television Facebook Live. The recorded meeting will be available the following day on Comcast Channel 9 and YouTube Scituate Community Television. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to call the meeting to order. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'd second.
Wonderful. I wanted to bring our attention just very briefly today as a tribal acknowledgement, and the acknowledgement that the land that we're currently on was originally inhabited by the Wampanoag tribe. There's a book called This Land is Their Land by David J. Silverman. And I would suggest picking up a copy or adding it to our library coffers because it seems like a very good read. I didn't get through the whole thing, but it's so far so good. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, moving right along. Our safe space and norms. This is a safe space for people of color and for all underrepresented people and communities. Any comments that are inappropriate or have an animus in racism or bias will not be allowed. Your sound will be turned off if your comments are offensive to the meeting. This is a safe space where people can bring up challenges and questions without fear of repercussion or hostility. Take the learning, but leave the story so that people feel comfortable sharing their experiences. Assume best intentions. All participants are embarking on this journey at different starting points. So please listen, read, and be kind. Also use respectful language and simply ask when you are unsure. Administrators may remove anyone with inappropriate content or acting inappropriately. Okay, with that, I just wanted to mention very quickly that someone had suggested to me that we say safe space or brave space. I don't think we should take that up tonight, but I just wanted to put that in your ear. So let's move on. The acceptance of the minutes from March 2nd, 2021. Are there any comments? Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes? I need to call the roll, I'm sorry. Is there a motion? Sorry, I can't hear anything.
I move to accept the minutes.
Wonderful. And is there?
I'll second it.
Wonderful. Okay, I'll call the roll. Ms. Risha.
Aye.
Vice Chair Secor.
Aye.
Ms. Harriman, I don't know if you're with us tonight.
She seems to be absent.
Okay, so absent. Keep that in mind. Ms. Yassin.
Yes, aye.
Ms. Dre.
Yes.
Who am I missing? Oh, Reverend Stewart.
Aye.
Wonderful. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And myself, aye. Okay, wonderful. So the minutes pass for this week. All right, at this time, I wanted to entertain public comment on the DEI committee and the goals that you think that the DEI committee should have, and whether or not you're willing to volunteer to assist us with our mission. And before I do that, I wanted to read some feedback that I received after our last meeting, where we had some members of the community contributing their feelings and thoughts about how what their experience is here in Scituate, and also what they're hopeful for the DEI committee and things that they'd like addressed. One person said that we focus a lot on process and project planning. And their feeling was that when we do that, we're ignoring some of the more concerning issues that are going on. So this person felt that, you know, our planning kind of makes it feel like we're not focused on making improvements to people's kind of daily living here in Scituate. I also received a comment that no one from the committee spoke to anyone yet who presented at the last meeting. So there is a desire for, I know some people of color or underrepresented people would not ever come to a meeting to talk. I've asked them, but they definitely want to contribute. And so it may be on us to reach out to them. I also received this comment, and it is an anonymous comment.
Nikki, to your last point about no one reaching out, how would we, is there information or emails public? Was it shared with us by them, you know, speaking? How would we go about doing that?
I think when people present, if I or someone on the committee has a rapport with the person, then you can text us or call us and say, I'd like to speak to so-and-so. Do you have their contact information? That's happened to me numerous times where people have heard, they know me and they've heard someone speak and they're like, I really wanted to talk to them to see further what they were thinking about the comments that were made. But, you know, we should also invite friends to come to the meeting and talk, or just simply introduce themselves. And if someone says something in public comment that we're like, you know, I actually know something that might help with that, or someone, you can interject and say, I'd like to speak with you offline. Can you send your information to me or to someone you feel comfortable with so that I can get in touch with you? You know, I think it's difficult to extend ourselves beyond this meeting, but I think that is something that's definitely desired. Does that make sense? Do you understand?
Oh, no, I understand. And I just, you know, want to be clear. I think all of us are coming to this work from a different spot, as we say in the norms. And as someone who's new to Scituate, I literally have one friend in town that I know. So I can't invite anyone to speak. You are who I know.
Right.
So whether you like it or not, you're on my crew now.
Right.
So we just have to, I think, appreciate that in terms of access and equity too. And I think also understanding, you know, maybe I'm not comfortable sharing my Gmail with the world is one thing, but I think for the purposes of this committee work offline, absolutely. I think, not to speak for everyone else on the team, because that's a hard comment to hear, because I think we want to be as inclusive as possible of the community and people of color. So I want to first, obviously that's making me uncomfortable, and that's a good thing. But you're right, like focusing on process, I think we all took down what their comments and recommendations were. And we have yet to deliberate as a group what we want to follow up on, because they were all worthy of follow up, right? So
Right.
just to say it publicly that thank you to everyone who spoke and who will speak. And if we don't respond to you immediately, that's not to say we won't, or there isn't interest, that we are open and available, and that's what we signed up for. So just to speak, because that made me uncomfortable, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for being honest about that. I think, you know, this committee is dealing with uncomfortable topics for, you know, it's not common conversation unless you're, you know, an Africana studies professor to talk about race, or to talk about neurodiversity, or to talk about, you know, religion. So these aren't, you know, everyday conversations that we get into necessarily. So yeah, we're going to be a little uncomfortable, myself included. And I think that just comes with signing. That's what we kind of signed up for. But if we weren't uncomfortable, I agree that then that would be a problem. So thank you for that comment. Here's one more comment. I just think this is a serious problem that the DEI committee needs to look at themselves and say, why aren't we listening to our chair's concerns? Why is this creating so much stress for her? Aren't all these books people are supposedly reading right now telling them to listen when a person of color is speaking? So, you know, some of the feedback that we get is not going to, it's going to rub us the wrong way. But I do hope that we consider it as we move forward, and what, if anything, we can do about you know, responding, reacting those to that feedback. Okay, so I'm gonna take, I don't know if someone else is handling the list. Is that happening? I'm not sure.
For public comment, Nikki?
Yes, for the public comment. Is someone else handling that?
Yeah, I can mute and unmute people once hands are raised.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to take some public comment. So if you'd like to make a comment today about the DEI committee and its goals and or volunteer, now is the time to do that. Do we have any volunteers? I actually can't see them from
Yep,
here.
so Sheena's hand is raised. I'm gonna unmute
Okay.
you, Sheena. So I've asked you to unmute, so you're gonna unmute yourself. All right, and if you would just introduce yourself and state your address.
Hi, my name is Sheena Sanders Smead, and I'm at 16 Cherry Lane. Sorry, just getting my video on. So I just want to say that I've kind of listened to some of the meetings recently, and I think some of the comments that were made just now ring true. I feel that I hear kind of a lot of pushback on like process and kind of really talking to people of color. And I just kind of wanted to say, I think everyone sounds like they're very ambitious to get things done and do work and do what they can to help contribute. But I feel like in a situation like this, it is okay to take a little bit of time. And it's okay, as I feel like as a white person, to not be a leader and be okay with that sometimes with this kind of situation. I think it's really important to take a step back and really hear what's being said and the process. And I think Nikki, as the chair, has a lot of experience with this, just even from life experience. So I just feel that the tone has been a lot of pushback on just anything she's trying to bring up, honestly. And I was just wanting to hope that people can take a pause and think about that and be a little more receptive, maybe, because I know that everyone wants to do good work and make a difference. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Thanks, wife, for your comments. Yep, that's my Irish person. So
Can I ask maybe a very
go right ahead.
ignorant
Go right ahead. Yep.
question? And this is just in general to everyone. So maybe I'm just totally being completely off base, but I don't feel like Nikki is the only person of color on this committee. Am I wrong?
Nope, you are not wrong.
Okay, so I just feel like often the comments are like directed at the whole committee being white, and I'm one of the white people, but I feel like it's being more it's like everybody but Nikki is kind of the way that I'm hearing comments being made about white people. And I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that this committee is half people of color and half white. So the white people will have a say because we're half of the committee, but the other half is people of color. And I feel like, you know, we try to listen to all of them. So I just want to make sure I wasn't totally off base on that.
Okay, thank you for your contributions, Reverend Stewart. Anyone else want to contribute to this portion of our meeting before moving forward?
I'll just say a couple words. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, because I got the dual iPhone, whatever. As long as you
At
can
least
hear me.
your screen didn't go completely out like mine did last time.
I leave the severe technical difficulties up to you, Nikki. You
Yeah.
usually seem to do pretty well there.
We're in trouble then. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I get where people are coming from here. And I'm not even really talking about me being white, right? I'm going back to like the process, right? And I understand, at least I think I do, some of the commentary since the last meeting. And I am a process guy, so I am trying to step back. But I think we've got like a chicken or the egg type thing going on here, where I do think we need, like, I will be the happiest person, I think, on this committee once we put the process stuff behind us. But unfortunately, I think we're having to spend probably an inordinate amount of time on the process up front because we just started 2 months. I know it's been 2 months, but it's still early. And I think once we can agree on just some basic steps, then we roll, right? I mean, I want to get out into the community engagement side of this more than anybody. I mean, I think we all do, right? We want to start doing the work. And I think I'm sensing some frustration, rightfully so, from the committee, from the community, that we just haven't really done anything yet. And I get it. And I think there probably is some frustration there. And I'm hoping that tonight, and at worst, maybe today's meeting and the next meeting, we can kind of put a fork in the process, agree as to what that is, and get going.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't want
agree.
to be talking about process in 2 months.
Yeah,
We're all
I agree
gonna
with
lose.
that. Yeah, I don't think that we will be. I don't think that, and I had several conversations after the last meeting, and a lot of it was, I'm so glad I have a place to come and say what's on my mind, whether I can make it
Yeah.
there because of work or not. I like that I have a place to come where I'm heard, because I haven't felt heard, and I've lived in the community for a long time, and I don't feel comfortable going to the town meetings. So I do think we've done something. We've done something by creating the committee. We've done something by finding people dedicated to this type of work. And we've done something by giving voice to members of the community that didn't feel they had a voice for a very, very long time. So that is to me as important as the process and getting that part right, which we have very capable people doing that. So I'm very pleased with that. So that part is, to me, as important or more important than, getting the process right, which we are. So, and we've done a lot. I mean, we're there, so I just want to put that out there, that we have done a significant amount by having a place for people to come and air their grievances about this type of situation. So is there anyone else? I can't tell if there's anyone else who's raised their hand.
Thank you for that, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you.
You just made me feel better.
You're doing something by just showing up. And I think people notice who's showing up for them. They very much notice who's showing up for them. And I think just by doing that, you've shown, you know, people worlds of a difference who just, you know, they kind of go under the rock and get through their life, but, you know, they're kind of not included or not feeling included in accepting that. So,
Nikki, maybe can I just make a comment or an observation? If people are feeling frustrated, which I think a lot of folks are, all of you are, because it's hard to learn government processes, and municipal actions don't happen quickly, unfortunately. But I would suggest maybe you add a parallel path, right? So you are all uncovering the process of how to go and identify what's happening throughout the different committees, and that's kind of been outlined. But maybe one of you goes off to the right and says, okay, let's create a survey or something to put out to the community, so you're receiving that information back at the same time, and it gives you a little bit of a jump start as to, okay, what is that sentiment out there in the community that we want to hear about, while we're also going forward and determining, okay, what's working, what's not working in all of our departments. So I would just suggest maybe that might be something you all consider.
yeah, it definitely is. And
Totally agree.
kind of foreshadowing our agenda, because the
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Community Council has created a survey, which I, you know, helped create for us to retrieve that information.
Oh,
So
good. I'll be
I'm
quiet.
hopeful that we will use that and
Okay, great.
get it out to the community as quickly as possible. All right. Is there any other comment? Miss Risha, do you see any other hands?
Just Sheena's.
Oh,
Sheena, I'm muting you, so if you could now hit on
Hi
mute.
there. Sorry. I just real quickly, I just want to say I didn't imply that there aren't other people of color on the committee, and I am not just speaking for myself. There has been a definite tone of pushback, and it is seemed to be directed at Nikki because she is the chairperson and leading things. And I just thought it was really important to bring forth. Obviously, I can be seen as very biased, but it's not just for me, and I obviously feel I can say it. And unfortunately, I am white and can feel like I can say it, where other people don't feel that they can say it because they're not. So it's I just wanted to say that, and I think everyone will do a great job with all of this. I think it is a process, and I think it's very important to be candid, and that's why I wanted to bring it forth. So thank you for listening.
awesome.
Thank you. And Nikki, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so let's move on to old business. Liaison reports. Select person Karen, would you like to talk to us a bit about what's going on with the select board?
Sure, and give you a quick update. So I did present your vote with making the town employee position as being a voting member. So we will take that up on the 3/23 meeting. Lucia, unfortunately, tonight still wouldn't be able to vote. So hopefully after our 3/23 meeting, Lucia, you should be all set, I would imagine. So I don't think there'll be any problem with that. The senior center staff is in the new building, which is great. So it's a great new facility for our town, and hopefully by mid-April, once COVID starts to settle down, we can determine how we can actually have folks come in there. So that's still being worked out. The board approved our 2022 budget. I always have to think in the future. $86 million operating budget, 41.5 million of that goes towards the schools. And town meeting will be on April 12th at 7 p.m. in the Scituate High School gym. So that's really all. I thought those are some of the highlights that I would share with you all.
Wonderful. Do you know any of the topics that will be on the town meeting's agenda yet? Or is there a place we can
Sure, the
find
full
those?
yep, the full warrant is there. Gosh, I think there's 23, 24 articles, and they are all posted on the town website. There's some zoning issues, obviously some standard capital planning. There's a petitioner's article with regards to water fixtures. There's an array of different initiatives that folks can go read about.
Awesome. So Mr. Hayes and Miss Brandolini are not with us tonight, but it's my understanding that they are liaisons chosen from the school's DEI committee. I don't know if anyone knows if that's absolutely right, but that's what I understand. Hopefully they'll join us at some point and give us their opinion on things. Miss Arnold did send me her comments for this meeting. Let me just see if I can find them really quickly. Here it is. Her comments were, liaison update. Our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Search Committee met last week to complete our review of our candidate applications. Review chose 4 applicants whom we will begin to interview tonight and tomorrow. We will interview 2 candidates this evening, and the final 2 individuals, hold on, my internet's, sorry. Bad internet situation. And the final 2 individuals tomorrow night. After completing these 4 interviews, the committee will meet to determine the finalists and send those names to the superintendent. We will hold a forum for the finalists to introduce themselves and answer questions. We have created a small district diversity, equity, and inclusion planning and response team and have met once. The mission of that team is to support professional development for cultural proficiency, support the principal's response to allegations of civil rights violations of marginalized groups of people, i.e. BIPOC, LGBTQ+ communities, and make policy recommendations to the school committee among responsibilities. In equity self-audit, with the help of Beloved Community, which is a nonprofit consulting firm which focuses on helping people develop sustainable solutions for organizations' efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the next meeting, I will bring the data concerning racial harassment incidents within the district. So those are her contributions to our meeting today.
So Nikki, quick question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah. She mentioned, I think you were chopping up just a little. So they hired a consulting firm to do an equity audit of what?
Of the district, so school system. So the consultant, sorry, it's getting darker. The consultant will do an audit of the school system. That's my
Okay.
understanding, but we probably need her here to be more specific for us.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. I'm definitely curious
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Okay. It's not really working. Okay. Any other questions about this portion of our meeting? Sorry, I'm trying to find a place where I can be seen. Like, okay. An update on the board's decision. Okay, so you've already given us that. Discussion, vote, use of community survey created by for self-work. Okay, so so the Hingham Unity Council has created a survey to do what we need, which is to reach out to community members that are underrepresented in communities on the South Shore. And they're collecting the information in one place, and they've agreed to collect information for us as well, because, they want kind of a picture of the South Shore. So what do we think about using the survey? Is that something that we would want to do? Does that make sense? people want to
So-
see it? What do we think about?
Well, I think a survey is great, and I think we've discussed it before. How would they separate the Scituate survey versus, would it be all commingled? Would they be able to, make sure that we're getting the responses just for Scituate residents, or how would they do that?
You specify
Yes.
it by, you specify the town.
Okay,
I think
so
it's the
the
first
survey
question.
itself. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a
You
really good
specify the
survey.
town. You've seen it?
Yeah,
Okay.
Did you guys
I tell
share
you-
it?
Is
Is
it
it out
the
there?
survey, my understanding of the survey is that it was. Yes, I can
I
share.
found-
I
I
have
found
a
it on
link
Facebook.
for it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a link
When
for
I-
it as well, so I can send that to everyone.
Nikki, that would be helpful because I need to.
So
if
it
we're
sounds
going to
like there
consider
is
this,
some
we
interest
need-
in using this survey.
I think people need to be able to see the survey. And if you can provide
Yeah,
that
we need
to
to,
us, that would be great,
um,
because again, that has to be a matter of public record that I have what that is.
it's like,
Okay.
I want to say it takes 10, 15 minutes to fill out, probably less. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So I think anybody can access it. It's
Okay.
just a link.
All right, so I'm gonna send that to. Okay. I'm gonna send that to you, Ms. Yassin, so that you can include it with the minute.
I would advise you sending it to all members.
Yes, I will send it to everyone.
Nikki or Tom, do you
Um,
know if this is going to be disseminated a certain way, or is it just like a live link where people, where somebody should encourage people to go and find it and take it? Like, for example, like I don't go on Facebook, so is it live on just Facebook, or how is it being shared
Yes.
widely?
I hate Facebook too.
I think,
I'm with you.
yeah, I think Hingham's doing it. Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
have
to
the
find
link
it right.
for us, but I think I have it right here. Let's see. Let me see if I can put it in the,
No way.
let's see if I can put it in the chat. Let's see how this goes. I will try and put it in the chat before this is over. Here it is. I think they're putting it on their town website. And I think the library's helping them, and a few other groups in town are helping them kind of disseminate this.
Do you want me to share it for 5 minutes? I have it.
Yeah, can you share your screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna try.
I'm sorry, I wanted to remind everyone that we do have subtitles available. And at the bottom of your screen, you'll see 2 C's, and you can turn them on and off as you like. So I just want to let everyone know that that is available for these meetings.
All right, can you guys see this?
Okay, so here it is. Yes, we can.
All right, so I'll just, obviously there's just some intro stuff here. Let's see here. So here's the community list, okay? And then there's, a series of questions. We've all seen surveys like this, I think. I think I filled it out last week, so I forget how many questions there are.
So I thought it was just for people of color, but this is for everyone, which is even better.
Yeah, I filled it out.
It's interesting,
yeah.
it said that you have to be over 18 to fill it out, though.
Is that what it says?
At the very
Is that what it says? Let me go back
beginning,
up.
I think it said that, yeah, you must be over 18.
Yeah.
When are they putting it out there, Tom?
It's already out in Duxbury, Cohasset, and Hingham. So we're behind. And the first time they're collecting information is the 24th of March. So this is something we'd have to really move on. I think probably the best place to do it is if we can, I have the link, and if we could put it on website and in our minutes. I know our minutes go online, but I don't know if you can hyperlink the minute in
Oh,
the
this is-
minutes. So for instance, you
So-
pull up our minutes or you pull up our agenda. Can you then click on a hyperlink?
Well, I think the best way, if you want to
Don't know.
disseminate it quickly, is for it to go out through the town email, list email service.
That's something.
So I think what we want to do is get in front of Jim Bedreau as quickly as possible. So if you can send this link over to Bob and myself, so we can get in front of Jim tomorrow.
Okay.
As long as you guys all agree that this answers questions that you're all curious to find out about, if folks have. And I would just say, when you guys put things on the agenda, if you can send samples beforehand so your committee can take a look and have good constructive commentary, you'll be able to move things along a little quicker.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got the link kind of late and I think, I thought I was sent the survey to fill out and I thought I could then send it to everyone, but I needed a link anyway. So I have the link now and I can send the link to everyone. But I do think we should try and put it, if everyone thinks this is a good idea, I think we should, yes, we should contact Boudreaux and see if we can put it on the town's website. Any thoughts?
Well, I think Maura was saying it could actually go out through a town email list. Is that what you were saying, Maura?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we might be able, yeah, because we have a lot of subscribers that subscribe to different email lists, and a lot of them subscribe to
Yeah.
like All Town News. So we could put it in a couple different places.
That's the way to do it, because no offense, but how many people are going to the Scituate Town website
Right.
No, agreed.
by choice?
Yep.
That email list, I think, is in the thousands. I think a lot of people receive that.
Good.
And I'm just hovering on this because you can see that it's, you describe your ethnicity, sexual orientation. It's 100% anonymous, right?
Yeah, and I would also suggest that if the committee agrees to move forward with this tonight, that you write a brief introduction, that this is from the DEI committee and, it's a part of, a South Shore initiative, just so that there's a little bit of context to it, if it's going to go out quickly.
Okay.
Could also, if we have that all written up, I can send that out to my colleagues at the various churches here in town. And I'm not saying they will, but I think some of them will at least share it out. And that would just get it in front of more people.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Reverend Stewart. This is great. So it sounds like this is information we'd like to get, and we have a vehicle to get some of it. I'm going to do a roll call to be sure that we're all on this.
So Nikki, can I suggest we do, somebody move to?
Yes,
to
is there a
accept the,
motion?
or make a motion to accept the Hingham Unity Council. So I'd like to make a motion to accept the Hingham Unity Council survey and disseminate it through various channels in Scituate.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. I will call the roll. Ms. Risha,
Aye.
Vice Chair Secor,
Yes.
Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Wonderful. All right, so we'll get that up and get some more information in as we move forward.
Can I just ask a question?
let's- Go right ahead.
I'm just curious. So who's going to have access to the information coming in? Is it somebody on the Hingham Unity Council, and then they'll parse it and send us the Scituate results?
Exactly. So there's several people. One of them is Miss Blackburn. I believe she's from Hingham or Cohasset. I can't remember. She and I believe a woman named Katie, and I can't remember Katie's last name, are you know,
Okay.
kind of heading up this charge and collecting the information. And they've set it up so that it goes to the different towns so that they can then send it to us, send our results to us as well as the entire, the full result as well as our town's result. So that's their plan.
Great.
And I can give you their contact information if you'd like, because
I'm fine. I was just more curious as to, you know, where the information was going to sit. And, you know, we can talk offline about it, but that's great. Thank you.
You're muted, Nikki.
I think you're on mute,
oh,
Nikki.
sorry. I don't know where I cut out. I'm very sorry. But basically there's a woman, Miss Blackburn, and there's another woman whose name is Katie, and they're collecting the information, and they'll give us Scituate and the entire
right.
result. So I can give you
Great.
their information if you'd like, Mr. Secor. So, all right. Any other questions about this? Great. All right. So next is the youth subcommittee. At the last meeting, we wanted to have some language for a charge. I don't know if anybody has that.
Yes, I have it. I've already put it in the minutes, Nikki, so that it would be
Okay.
easier for us to find.
Wonderful.
So the proposed charge, Subcommittee on Youth, the establishment of a subcommittee to the Scituate Diversity and Equity and Inclusion Committee, whose charge is to 1, collect information on incidents based in bias amongst the town's youth. 2, to provide an anonymous way for youth to report when such incidents take place. 3, to report to the advisory committee quarterly before its quarterly presentation to the select board with suggested recommendations.
Okay, so let's open this up to discussion. Any comments? Thoughts?
My question kind of goes a little bit to the one we had at the beginning of this meeting of if the youth are going to their peers and reporting this through the subcommittee, what are those who are reporting expecting to get from the subcommittee? Like what kind of support are they expecting in return for them putting their stuff out there?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer to that. I mean, in my experience, just being heard is kind of the most important part. I think also their report to us and recommendations to us might be very telling as well in terms of what might be helpful for youth. So I think, you know, their goal is to be supportive of someone who's reporting this, meaning, you know, this is a safe space for you. This is a place where you can speak freely about what's happened to you or what you've observed, and know that what you contribute here will be part of what we consider as we make recommendations to the advisory committee.
I think my concern is I can see these children really, right, bringing forward some pretty horrible things that are really traumatic for them, and what kind of they may be wanting something more immediate or more concrete than just a we heard you, thank you for sharing, and we'll consider that going forward. Like that might not, they might need more help than that. And so I just wonder how are we going to equip this subcommittee for children themselves, right, to handle that? It just seems like a heavy thing on, like, I think the kids should have a safe space, but I'm just worried about that they would have enough resources or enough ability to sort of hear some of that and give the support or the recommendations of where they could get support in a way that would be immediately helpful.
Right.
For
So
some
that
of the
might
more
be the,
serious instances.
right, for the more serious instance.
Yeah,
That might be the first thing that they recommend to us, that as a part of this, that there is support, given or created or maintained for them. And for so that be their first recommendations, that there needs
I'm
to
sorry, Nikki,
be
you cut out. Can you repeat what you
support.
just said?
Did I?
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. That might be one of the first recommendations. That there needs to be support set up in town that I don't know exactly what would be helpful to them, but I'm sure they do. So maybe that's the first thing they tell us. How, what kind of help are you expecting or do you need when these things happen? So, and do you have any recommendations for how the town can assist you in getting that? So.
Nikki, the subcommittee wouldn't be just youth. I mean, obviously they'd be a member of this
Right.
committee on that. And we could also have other, one or two other adults. So it's not just the youth, speaking and, helping them each other, right? We would.
Right,
the
one
other-
of us, at least one of us has to be, going to the subcommittee meetings, which
Right.
ideally
And
would alternate with our meeting in order to
Right.
make sure whoever decides to do it can get there.
Yeah, and they are youth, so not all of them may be in Scituate Public Schools, but some of them may be. And we have Jen Arnold and we have other resources. So the other committee members in the subcommittee could perhaps provide other resources if if need be.
Right. Which
I
we
would
don't
think
even
too,
know.
there might be moments in which the whole youth of the subcommittee would also need some support around things they may hear.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with
Yeah.
that.
Because Nikki, just a comment, because when I first started thinking about a youth subcommittee, there was a part of me that was like, well, okay, but the schools are doing something and they have an anonymous like Google form or something where they can report stuff. But I think I was thinking of it too narrow, because I think Angela just said it. It doesn't mean that there's kids that aren't in the Scituate schools, and there's stuff that's happening, I'm sure, outside of the schools. I mean, you got all summer, right? So giving them, I think this is a great idea. And I guess we'll work it out, but I'm trying to think about, like, what is their form going to be? Is it going to be the subcommittee meetings where we have a couple of youth that are on it and they can are we going to give them a form to fill out if there's a situation, or maybe I'm just thinking too far ahead? I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wrapped up
great
in that
idea.
process, Tom.
yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think you're thinking too far ahead. I think that's exactly where we are right now with this. We'd have to want to create this to make it make sense to get into this. But I think that's the first step. Do we want to figure this out? Do we want to, tweak a charge that, gets us to where we need to go in collecting this information and getting recommendations from them? And then I think we need to figure out the best way to do it. I don't think, we know that at least one of us, perhaps two of us from this committee would need to go to those meetings or be a part of those meetings. And then two, some of the people from this committee happen to also be a part of the school system. So we may draw from them. They're not here tonight, but we may draw from them on how they do it and how to proceed with it. But I think our youth committee would have a different effect than a school committee, because our youth committee is about the community, as opposed to just the school. right? So we're missing that piece. And how to capture that is the question.
I think it's a good idea to set up the youth subcommittee. I think it would be beneficial to, the youth in Scituate.
And maybe this is a general question for everybody, but how are we defining youth? And also legally, if somebody under 18 discloses something, what are we as the over 18 crowd legally obligated to then share? Because I agree with Angela. I think it's an awesome idea, Nikki. I guess I just want to make sure legally we're all good. And maybe that's just clarifying some language within the charge, but also how are we defining youth too?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. In my head, youth is anyone under 21. But I think legally youth is anyone under 18 or under 19, so 18 and below. This is the reason we need people from the school district to be a part of our committee, is because they will bring us kind of the adult side of what's going on, but also lead us through what works best for children of certain ages. The other thing that we should expect from a youth subcommittee is that we might not just get, teenagers. We may also get, younger children as well. So I know that my son is now in the middle school, but when he left Wampatuck, they were starting to do kind of set up clubs, different, groups, and be a part of that. And some of them were very outspoken. Some of the fifth graders were very outspoken about things. So I do think those are things that we can work out if we decide to do it. And I agree, legally, the language we need to be very careful with. So we have something to work from, or just, we can scrap it or, add to it or subtract from it to create kind of what would be helpful to us and to them. So that's kind of the thought of it. I haven't figured it out. I just know that that is information that we need. So
Yeah, I think like you just said, and I think it was on the front page of the Mariner 2 weeks ago. There's a group that started at Gates, and it was started by two young girls, two young white girls, but two young girls.
good for them.
And good for them. And because that's what we're going to need. We're going to need kids, not just 16 and 17-year-olds.
Right.
Jackie Thornton's younger sister, and I know her because she's friends with my daughter. She's outspoken about this.
Mhm.
8th grade.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And I think that's what we can anticipate for sure. I know Christopher has a number of kids in his grade. He's in 6th grade that are very vocal about who they are and what their friends are going through and what they're going through. So I think that's really helpful. Also, we have Metco here. So how do we incorporate those children when the meetings are in the evening, usually, or certainly after school? So I think we can figure these things out. I think we can figure these things out, and I think we should. So I guess the question now is, what do you think? Let's see. Does anyone else want to contribute to the conversation? Do we still need to think about this and flesh it out?
I think it would be good to get the school people's input before Celia had some really good points, I think, about like the legality of what we might be responsible for. So I think, I sort of feel like we do need to flesh it out a little bit more, just Like if they were here tonight, I feel like we could have answered the questions and we could have moved forward.
agree with
I'm not
that.
feeling like we need a lot more. I just like,
Yeah, there's some really major questions
there
that we
are some big
need
questions
help
that I
with.
think we should know the answers to before we do a really official vote kind of thing.
I agree with that.
I mean, I think if you read the charge, it's primarily just collecting information, an anonymous way to collect information to inform this committee so that we can make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. So that seems like it could be relatively simple to do, a process to do that. But just as everyone says, it often, I think, is going to just open a can of worms, and we need to be prepared to be able to respond to that. You know, I mean, before you ask someone to share difficult experience or difficult information, you need to be prepared to be able to support them in some way. And so, and I agree. Ultimately, I think that it's the youth on the committee are going to be able to tell us the best way to solicit that information in a way that's non-threatening, that, you know, people are going to be open and honest. And then I think we need to be prepared with a whole series of just support systems for people so that, you know, someone isn't, you know, coming and sharing something that can be potentially traumatic for them. And then our response is, oh, okay, well, thank you. And we'll get back to you. We need to be prepared to really be able to support that. And you know, for the youth in this town, most of the support, I think, ultimately probably comes from the school department, right? And you know, someone who elderly residents of the town, they're getting a lot of support from the Council on Aging, but there's that gap in between too, like, you know, particularly when we get to talk about the adults, you know, the subcommittee on adults. You know, what exists to kind of really support these individuals, and that's actually that's the challenge, I think. You know, that's so.
Yeah, and I think that's our next. Yeah, go ahead. Was someone saying something?
I was gonna say, like Angela brought up too, some of the kids don't go to our schools, so they could still come to this town.
I think that's our
but
next
then
thing, is to talk
they're-
about that, creating that.
right there.
I called it a hate crime subcommittee, but we can call it anything else.
I was just saying that the students though who don't go to school don't have the support of the school system.
I'm sorry.
The way that the kids who here are. So we should, Bob, to your point, make sure we have that in place beyond the school system.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat loves Zoom. I'm sorry.
I share I think it's a great idea. I think the committee just needs to sort of define and set expectations of those anonymous submissions, because if you're going to bring it to the Board of Selectmen, what are we to do with it, right? If it's anonymous, and, you know, if it's very clear that it's a way in which for us to gather information and we'll take it under advisement as we move forward, maybe that's the clarity that needs to be set, because I don't want to set expectations that there's any power in our hands to help them any further than that, not knowing specifics and facts, right? That's always the challenge. And I want to make sure that we don't disappoint people either and set incorrect expectations.
Right. So I viewed this as an information gathering vehicle, but the information we're gathering is highly sensitive. In the process of gathering it, we may receive, you know, emotional reactions that we might not be prepared to assist with, which is why we need the right adults, you know, sitting in on these meetings and being a part of the meetings. But collecting the information could be a bit more benign, like writings or a voicemail if we have a line set up for reporting. And as a part of that reporting, include a request on what you'd like to see done or what you'd like to happen. But a disclaimer saying this line is for collection of information and for, you know, making recommendations to the board. Like, for instance, to the select board, for instance, well, we can't eradicate racism because we can't control people in the town and people have a right to do what they want. Okay. But if one of our recommendations is to have a community engagement meeting, town meeting or whatever, where people come and talk about these issues and maybe learn something or whatever and make suggestions, that's something that could be recommended. So I don't have the answer for what the youth of today would recommend. I have no idea. And I guarantee you it involves digital something or other.
Yeah.
So I won't be helping with that, but I think that they are very removed from direct contact. And so we would have to adjust to those things. But I think we will get more assistance when we have our school committee members here to help us out and help us collect the information, hopefully.
I guess the question I have is, how do we, let's just use this as an example, right? How do we get this to a yes vote? Because I think we all think that we should have something like this. What is like the minimum information that we need to give this a green light? Because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to come up with the mechanism by which we're going to come up with the information, because we don't know. Because it could be a survey, which could have some legality issues. It could be a line, like you said. It could be an anonymous email. I mean, I don't know. It could be some weird app that these kids all use that I don't even want to know about. So I think we have to brainstorm it as a subcommittee. But if we all agree on the goals, then
we're saying we want the information, like we want to know what's going on. We want to capture that information.
If we can agree on the goals and the people in this committee that are going to work on it, is that enough? That's a question, I guess.
Well, I'd be interested to hear on the people in this committee who would be willing to work on it, because I think that is one of the concerns. So Nikki, are you wanting to be on this subcommittee?
Yes, I'm willing to do this. I'm absolutely willing to do this. I'm sad that we've lost Miss Harriman, because I think her background is phenomenal for this type of work.
Is that common knowledge, Nikki?
Her social work?
No, that we've lost Miss Harriman, I mean, tonight?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we didn't speak about that, but yes, I don't think that she'll be joining us. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't spoken to her directly, but I did receive a message from her that she may be stepping down. So I will confirm that. But if that is true, which I believe it may be, that is a skill set that's difficult to replace for things like this, but we could do it. So I agree with you, Tom, that what we're asking right now is this something that we want to get into and do? And if the answer is yes, as long as it's the right way, then it's still yes, and we can move forward. But if it's, maybe we should just take a vote.
Yeah, because I'm willing to support Nikki with your support that you will be involved. And then instead of, I feel bad amending something, but instead of quarterly, can it be that there's a monthly update on like the decisions you're making? Because we don't have all this kind of set in stone yet, and to see some progress, and that you might want to bring some things back just to kind of touch base. And it doesn't have to be every meeting, because it may not be a time that you get something every meeting, but maybe monthly kind of report in. And then I would feel comfortable that a lot of these things are what you're going to come back and then report to us about what's happening.
Right.
Because again, I am concerned about an anonymous piece. I think if it was more that it was names may be withheld to protect people's, but if I have no name, then I have a really hard time of knowing what to do about anything. And then finding out about, is there any kind of mandated reporting that you have? As a teacher, I had that role, that if somebody came to me with certain information, I had certain places I had to go to report that legally. And so I think some of that you guys need to kind of delve into, whether probably not in this meeting now,
No,
but then you take it to other meetings with school, maybe even Mandy. I don't know who deals with, youth issues that may become legal issues that you then have to report. So, but
right.
those are things
So
you
I
can work
think
out.
I agree with you. Absolutely, Ruth. And I think there should be some sort of peer leadership training for this. I think some students have already gone through that. So there are some people who on their own are participating in peer leadership training like this. And I think they may be part of the anti-racist group that was created at the high school. I'm not 100%. But there are options to find people to train people on these things.
So do other people have other questions? Because if not, I'm going to make an amendment. Yeah, Mandy does.
Mandy.
She's kind of waving.
You're on mute.
Yeah, it wouldn't let me unmute myself.
Oh, no.
It said I had to ask permission. So there clearly are legal issues that come up, juveniles, not juveniles. I think we should be very cautious about going down that road. Obviously not on Facebook Live. I'd love to have a conversation with you about that. But I would definitely have some concerns going forward about, the way crimes are reported. If someone is telling you, it could jeopardize a case down the road. If that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense. That makes absolute sense. Okay.
And
So-
I agree too with, proceeding and trying to figure this out, because I think it's a perspective that we've all, agree that we need to inform our work. And I think even from the conversation today, it's clear that through this process, we've uncovered that clearly there are, there's like a missing chunk of support potentially between what the school system provides and what the town could provide to youth. So maybe there's something supplemental that we would recommend in terms of support for youth that don't go to Scituate public schools or are not Scituate residents, but do attend Scituate public schools. So that's already come to light. So I think it's worthwhile to figure it out.
All right. Let's vote.
Well, can I vote as amended that the one thing would change was that instead of reporting quarterly, report monthly?
Yes,
Is that okay by you to put that in there? That's an amendment?
absolutely. And this would be our charge. So we are allowed to bring it back up, take it out of
Right.
Slack, look at it again.
Yep.
After we speak with the school and the lieutenant and, I think I see some things as, changeable. We're able to change them as needed based on whatever information we collect. So I think that charge is definitely one of them.
Okay, I would like to make a move to accept the amended charge, the amendment being meeting monthly for the youth establishment of a subcommittee, a youth subcommittee.
Second. If I'm allowed to second, I don't know.
You are.
Okay. Okay, so I will read the roll. Miss Risha,
Aye.
Vice Chair Secor,
Yes.
Miss Yassin,
Yes.
Miss Dre,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. Okay, so that is done, and I will consult with Jen Arnold on our decision and go from there, and then I'll report back. And also, I have a phone call outstanding with you, Lieutenant, so I guess we'll add this to that phone call.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Moving on, a subcommittee on hate crimes. Similar data collection. And hate crimes doesn't have to be what this committee is called. it could be incidents based in bias. I don't know, but I think that it's difficult to get people of color to come and tell us what's going on. And so I think there needs to be a way for them to feel comfortable telling us so that we know what the real deal is. I don't necessarily think it needs to just be a hate crime. That's kind of a higher standard, but I do think there are things going on that shouldn't be, and there are people experiencing things that they shouldn't. So that was the idea with this subcommittee, to try and capture the things that we do at the beginning of our meetings, the public comment, which you notice not a lot of people show up to. And I know that I tell a lot of people about it, but there's not a willingness to step forward, and for a number of reasons, which we're trying to work on. So that was the idea with this. I also did a proposed charge for this, which I hope you had a chance to look at. So any thoughts on this?
I would just echo our conversation that we just had, that, you know, whatever mechanisms we use, we make it clear what our responses are, our responsibility to those people are, or if they're all anonymous, then that fact that they'll be anonymous. Just kind of that conversation we just had. These are adults, so it's a little different, but I think there's still, we need to make sure that whatever parameters are set up in this, it's clear that it's sort of, we can offer supports if we know the person, to tell them where to go if we know where they should go. But that it's not our role as the committee or the subcommittee to directly respond or fix or what have you the problem. I also wonder, Mandy, maybe you can answer this, if the hate crimes, just that language of crime, like, does that infringe upon police process at some point? And so maybe we just really should call it instances of bias or something like that instead. I don't want to, oh, she can't unmute.
Okay. By the way, to clarify too, our agenda said setting up a subcommittee on hate crimes. However, the proposed charge that Nikki provided was subcommittee on incidents based in bias. And so it is all worded with that wording rather than hate crimes. So the establishment of a subcommittee to the Scituate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, whose charge is to, 1, collect information on incidents based in bias amongst the throughout the adult populations of the town, 2, provide anonymous way to report when such incidents take place, and 3, to report to the advisory committee on the information collected quarterly before the committee's quarterly presentation to the select board with suggested recommendations.
So
Can I just, Madam Chair, just quickly, Seth, can you please make Amanda O'Shea a co-host so she doesn't have to keep asking to be unmuted? Sorry, I keep trying to unmute her so she can freely participate, but someone has to make her a co-host.
I don't know if that's all serious.
Thanks, Maura. So Reverend Stewart, just, you know, obviously I think Ruth was able to clarify, but obviously I think ever having someone report hate crimes to a committee that's not law enforcement obviously brings up some issues for me. It's, you know, one thing to report something and want to remain anonymous. And so again, not everyone on this committee is bound by 51As and filing with DCF. And so there's so many layers to this onion that, you know, to do this tonight is probably too much.
okay,
I wonder as well if we can, again, we're primarily interested in collecting information, collecting data. And if we set up a system in which the only way it can be submitted would be anonymously, right? Does that remove some degree of liability, responsibility on our part? But maybe even within that mechanism, say it's a, you know, someone, they do it online, they fill out some form online, but in that mechanism, it actually also provides information, support and information. So it says, you know, if you've been the victim of this, this is what you can do. And it tells them the different resources. So we're getting the information without knowing the specifics, but we're also providing the individual, whoever's reporting it, we're providing with support, we're providing with information on how to report a hate crime to the police department. And I'm wondering if that, ultimately may absolve us of some responsibility, but we're still getting the data, right? Because that's the big issue here with this entire committee, is that there's a lot of information in this community that we're just not getting. Like, we need to know more for us to be able to do our job. And so, it's just a suggestion.
It reminds me of those shows and movies you see that show instances of self-harm or something like that. And at the end, they say, if you're struggling with this, here's the hotline to call. Like, that feels like we're doing something if we're collecting it anonymously.
So I know it's a little.
Right. I was worried about stepping on toes in terms of reporting crimes, not directly to the police department.
And so
Right.
we have a mechanism on our website that you're able to anonymously report information. So it's kind of like our tip line. I know that's not necessarily the information that you're probably looking for, but there still is that. We at least have that mechanism to gather information without, it necessarily being reported as a crime.
So I think that's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Nick, I was just going to say, I view this charge as addressing a lot of, like, I was just looking back at my notes from the last meeting, a lot of what Craig was talking about. And, Craig, God love him. I mean, he's not shy about getting in front of a committee like this, having his video on and basically saying what's what, right? And I don't know the guy. I know who he is a little bit, but he was, I'm sure, speaking for a lot of people by saying that there is not a safe place. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this town that's unreported. He talked about the Stockbridge Road situation versus Egypt. It's apples and oranges for people like Craig. And I view this subcommittee as hopefully remedying, or at least giving a voice to that. That's the way I'm looking at it, if that makes any sense.
It makes complete sense. And I do think, I agree with you, Reverend Stewart, that we should change the name to Subcommittee for Instance-Based and Bias of the, whatever I put in there, to change the tone of what we're actually looking for and to be a little bit more inclusive. I do think, again, we should add this to our conversation, Lieutenant, because I know from doing defense work in Roxbury and Dorchester that, you have to be very careful with what you say and what's reported to who and all that other stuff. So I understand that very much. And I think that I would imagine that your tip line is not very active. Is that true? Do you know? Lieutenant?
Nikki, I'm not going to lie to you. I wish it wasn't active, but it actually is quite active.
Really? Yeah, we're missing stuff.
I think people to have some anonymity sometimes allows people to be more free in what they say. So the tip line's active.
Yeah.
The tips that come in, I'm going to assume they're all kinds of tips, not just instance of the bias or potential hate crimes.
Absolutely.
Is there a way, I'm just wondering if we have a mechanism in town, is there a way to filter out just the instances of bias and share those anonymously with this committee rather than us sort of reinventing the wheel? Or
Well, to that, I'll say you're reporting to the police, right? And like it or not, there's not the best relationship right now with people of color in the police.
True.
Not me. I had Officer Duffy, and he would teach me about, not talking to strangers. So my interactions, for the most part, have been positive. But there is a hesitation, and some people are like, well, what is the police going to do? And this isn't what they're supposed to do. So there's not a lot of education on that. So you might not get what you would get from a place where that there's a black chair, that There's people of color on the committee. You know that the committee's dedicated to listening to you. That's what they're there for. So you might get, you know, you might have more Craigs coming to this than you would, you know, the police tip line on this issue. So
That's a good point, Nikki. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just my feeling. I mean, I think us having these extraordinary long meetings every other week has changed the game for people that have lived here for a very long time. And they may not come to the meetings because they don't want to get involved. They don't want to, you know, they don't want the hassle. They just want to live their life, but it could be better. And this is, from the feedback I've gotten, this is a place that they would feel comfortable coming to. As a matter of fact, right after our meeting, I had a phone call with a mother here in town who I invited to come tonight for the public comment section. And the comment was, you know, I now feel like I have a place to go. You know, even, you know, complaining about trash or neighbors or whatever, you know, I don't feel comfortable going to the select board to do that. I went to a meeting and I went because I had something I wanted to say that I was concerned about or hear about, but I didn't feel comfortable saying anything. So we now have a vehicle where people will feel comfortable saying things. And police are intimidating. I mean, that's part of what they need to do and be in the community. So people are intimidated by that too. So I think this subcommittee will give us the full picture if we are able to create a space like we have so far that says, this is where you, if you didn't have any place to put it before, now you do, you know, so that's my idea. I do think we should change the name. I think that, you know, that makes a lot of sense. I do think we should speak with a number of people, including Lieutenant O'Shea, about training and when it moves from a subcommittee collecting information and needs to be reported. There's a line for those things, and I think we need to be clear on what that is. So, yeah, is this something we want to get into? What are our thoughts? Yes.
Nikki, I think this reminds me of something that Angela was suggesting at either the last meeting or the one before it, when we were talking about dedicating a space or a group of us just to, you know, do community outreach and work and to hear from people who are not comfortable coming before the whole committee, you know, on Facebook Live or whatever broadcast. And so I think the concept is the right one. I agree with you, not calling it, you know, anything around hate crimes, but we're also adding some more wording maybe to what, and I don't want to speak for you, Angela, so chime in, but I feel like you were trying to get at some of this too, right? To create this not mechanism, but just like a way for people to share. Am I making this up? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's correct, Celia. And I think this is a great idea. I think you will have people sharing their stories. I agree with changing the name because, you know, it is, you know, experiences that aren't necessarily a crime that you might have, but you want to discuss it with someone. You want to, you know, hopefully not relive it if it's something that, you know, can be addressed. And I mentioned, I think last meeting, another neighbor that I ran into. This past week, I saw another friend that I grew up with, and she was telling me how her teenage daughter was called the N-word. And my girlfriend was, you know, she's a very religious person. So she's telling me, Angela, this didn't happen when we were growing up in Scituate. Of course it happened. But her daughters are very outspoken and they don't want to handle it like their mother wants to handle it by just praying for them. And I told her, I pray for them, but we still have to address it, you know? So I think, you know, reaching out to the community and having adults have a committee that they can go to is important, as well as the youth. Because these girls of hers, I would reach out to them and make sure that they know that there's a youth committee now, They were at Scituate schools. I don't even know if they still are in Scituate schools. But yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to get the feedback from the community.
Nikki,
Yes,
can I also, though, as you guys move forward to consider this, that we tighten it up a little bit? I mean, this should be a place, because this committee is to look at policies and procedures of the town, right? So if folks are going to come to you with anonymous feedback, I would hope that it would be with regards to something that happened, if it's with the town department or something that's town sponsored, because I don't want it to get into my neighbor did this to me, or this is how I was treated. I want it to be really targeted, so it helps us all move forward in the right direction. Because I do agree to, get that information from them. And if it's in an anonymous way, it's going to have to be pretty specific so we can address it, right? If that makes sense. I fear sometimes you hear things and everybody's perspective is their own, but it may not always be all sides of a story, right? So in order for us to correct as we move forward, we want to make sure that all aspects of the issue are represented properly as well. So I see the benefits and the challenges with this, but certainly willing to look at the being more beneficial.
good. I think I kind of disagree. I don't think we should shy away from things outside of what's going on with the town. I think it will give us a sense of the temperature of the town. And that may inform us as to things that we can do as government people to move people away from that, or to assist them with not having to deal with certain things. So I guess I would disagree with that, but I do understand what our goal is. I always have it in mind. More information to me is better than less, because you never know what information you need until you have as much as you can get. So we may be.
Yeah, like I said, I totally see the benefits outweighing some of the challenges, but I just want us to be mindful of some of those challenges that we may encounter.
I agree. No, this is not small. This is not small. And I understand the weight of that. I would say that even though we're choosing people from the committee to kind of gather people and put these subcommittees together, I would hope that everyone on this committee would at some point drop into a meeting of the youth committee or the incidence-based and bias committee, see what's going on, to show your face, to show support and all that other stuff. And I think that would go a long way too. I also think that these subcommittees, and it's not the best way to term it, these will take this away from some of the other work we're doing, but still give us the information, right? So I'm on the finance side of things, so I'm getting ready to get into some numbers, but I don't want to be so tunnel vision about them that I'm not thinking about the information we're collecting from these subcommittees and community members as well as I look at them. So my hope is that this takes it a little bit off our plate in terms of having to also collect this information. So, and I think our meetings for the most part are going to be talking to department heads and whoever. And I think we're going to head into that. And I think we should have this set up before we do. So
Nikki, can I again confirm that this is something you would like to be, you're going to be working on this subcommittee?
Yes.
Because I always want to confirm, if we're going to have something, who's doing it? You have to have somebody who commits to that's part of something they want to do.
Right, Angela, I would love it if you joined me for this.
I will.
Okay, awesome. All right, so
and then again, I would not mind hearing a monthly kind of feedback on how things are going. And I understand that a lot of it in the beginning might not be a lot of things that are decided, but just like, yeah, we've set up a way for people to report, or we've, just even a brief touch in, again, not every meeting, but like once a month. Would you accept that as an amendment to your?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. The name change and the once a month.
The name is already on there. You already have the name
Oh, I
as
already put, okay,
Subcommittee on
that's good.
Incidents Based in Bias.
Okay,
And so instead of committees, could we change it to report to the advisory committee on information collected monthly?
yeah,
And then I think then again, and maybe just add "and" before the committee's quarterly presentation to the select board with selected recommendations.
yes.
So,
Yeah, I think the recommendations that we'll get from these subcommittees will be things that, we probably don't have time to get into with all the procurement issues going on, and B, that we don't want to miss. So, shall we vote? Is there,
I make a move to accept the subcommittee on incidents based in bias with the amendment that it report in monthly.
second?
Okay, is that you, Nikki?
Yes.
Okay.
So I will call the roll. Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Vice Chair Secor.
You have to unmute yourself.
He's stuck.
Yes.
Okay, good. And Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, excellent. All right, so my first conversation will be with Lieutenant O'Shea, and we will go from there. All right, let's see where we are. Questions to ask town boards, committees, and next steps forward, Mr. Clark, Ms. Risha, Mr. Secor, and Ms. Yassin. So take it away.
Keep me honest, Ruth. I'm trying to think of where we left off.
Tom, I
Like
think
we've all-
everyone was going to review the questions and send detailed edits so we could agree and move forward with the process, correct? So I don't know
Yeah, I
if
think-
you've received any comments directly.
I have not.
So then I guess the question for us to decide on today is, are we okay voting on these and proceeding so we can get to the conversations with the different departments? Because that would be the next step if everybody was fine with the questions as is.
Right. And I think we have two questions. One is accepting the questions as presented. And again, if you have a change, then you need to submit what the change would be. Because that was
Right.
what you were asked to do for this week, the last 2 weeks. And then the other piece will be the process, and the process has changed slightly. So that might be something we need to walk through, because we don't, norms and guiding principles and DEI charge from town. I don't think those are anything that those are nothing we need to really necessarily vote for. But the process itself, we've streamlined it a little bit, knowing that everybody is busy, as well as, I'm talking us. There's a lot going on, as well as in order to get the information accurately and keep it such that it cannot be questioned. So step one is just the initial meeting with Maura and Bob with their, they have regular department head meetings. So to have that, just explain to them what is going on so that they know it's coming up. Step two is to actually send out this
Hold on
questionnaire.
1 second. I thought step one was a letter.
Okay, as of last time, this is the same step one as before. So step one was a meeting chaired by Maura and Bob. They meet with the department heads, which I believe Bob meets with them regularly anyway. And this was to explain what's going to happen now. Step two is a questionnaire survey. It would have kind of an introductory letter of why this is, reminding them of why this is going out. Here's this survey, please take this survey. And it's something that they then have to write it down. We were talking before about us collecting this information, that we would write it down, but that gets a little challenging to write down everybody's everything. And then later on, the question is that, well, did we get it right? Right. This way they can write down their answers and we'll have their written responses on a survey form. Step three is then follow up, preferably in small groups, in that there's 22 departments. So meeting with a person with 22 departments is a heck of a lot of meetings. Bob has a way of grouping things together so that it could be made into smaller groupings. And again, this is just kind of review the information that we've got, ask, kind of get any other information that, might have come up as we were looking over their answers. They should provide a brief overview of their departments. It's kind of our way of getting to know what they're doing. And then after that, the subcommittee goes, what do we want to do next? Because we're now going to follow up with questions to all personnel. This was only to the department heads, just to get the discussion started. Step four is where the subcommittee goes and talks to us, back again with the major committee, about what's going on, what do we want to do, how do we want to do things with this, what's going to happen next. And then step five is those in-depth questions for the personnel. And that has yet to be developed. So we're not really talking about what's going to happen to step 4 and 5. That comes after we get the information from the department heads. And part of the question becomes too, is that does everybody want to be part of those small groups with the discussions? At one point in time, we had been assigned certain areas, but it actually didn't all work. There's more areas than assigned people. And so, is this something that everybody would want to be a part of? Or do people want to volunteer to do this or not, to be part of this follow-up discussion? So I think that's kind of a question that we need before we vote this.
Yeah, I think that latter piece that Ruth talked about, that was something that we had a subcommittee meeting discussion about last week, where certainly we were getting the vibe that there was almost two streams of things going on here, right? And I think this is a good development. One stream is a lot of everything we've talked about tonight, really, around the community engagement. And I'm psyched. We've approved the survey, we've approved 2 subcommittees tonight, and they're all geared towards community engagement, which I think is great. This piece is the quote unquote process and the town departments and so forth, which is also obviously very important. But I don't think that we should force people. I think we have people that are equally adept and kind of passionate and geared up to go after both, right? So I think we've got a number of people that have already raised their hand tonight to take on a lot of the things that we've talked about. And then we still have this, which is what we've been talking about the last several weeks, which needs to, get off the launching pad as well, that a number of us can also work on. It's almost dividing and conquering a little bit at this point. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I mean, I think that, I don't think we're there yet. Like, I feel like the responses to the initial questionnaire may guide us a bit.
Right.
I do like the way that we're set up now. I know that we don't have, we haven't stretched our arms out far enough. I don't even think we address committees and boards. So there's departments, but there's also committees and boards that are appointed by the select board, et cetera. So I think this should be, I think it's a very good start. And I think we can get through the first few steps. And I think once we get down to the questionnaire and talking to department heads, et cetera, we should re-examine step 4 and 5. And
I would agree.
But as it stands now, it looks good. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard. I think that's fair, Nikki. I mean, I think it's hard to know until we get this information back.
Right.
Right. And I think I'd like to think that we can reserve the right to shift course depending on the information that we do get back. But
the other thing is too, I think a lot of people are, this needs to get done and we need to be productive and we need to move forward. But if you move too fast, you miss things. And sometimes for things like this, the process is just as important. So I like steps 1 through 3. And I think that 4 and 5 may work, but may not. And we should revisit this after we get closer to the end of step 3.
So can we approve tonight the questions that would go out? Can you put those questions back up, Tom?
yeah, I mean, at this point, we've boiled it down to, I think there's only 7 questions. Oh, God. Bear with me. There we go. Well, read the first couple and I'll fiddle with my screen here. You guys see them all?
Yeah, that's better.
And sorry, not to be negative, Nancy, but just to reiterate, when we share these, 2 weeks before meetings, if we could just all commit to each other to have read them and, come ready to discuss them during the meeting, so we could just move on it as well. Because I am hearing your call, Nikki, from community members at the beginning of this, but I think that'll help with us moving things along.
Are there any comments? Are these our questions, our initial questions?
And the other thing that I'll just note about these questions is, I think between, Bob and Lucia, there's other kind of just more, I'm not sure what the word is, but kind of metrics, numbers, census information, org charts, those types of things. They're not part of the questions because they should be able to get us that information regardless or in addition.
Right. All right. Do we need to vote? I'm trying to look at the
Well, so we have questions and we have, I guess, steps 1, 2, and 3. Can those be voted at this point in time?
I think they all can be voted, with the caveat that, we'll re-examine
Okay.
after we kind of go through the first process. That's my feeling. So I would move to accept the questions and the process as outlined with the caveat that we review it as things, after step 3, maybe.
Okay, so you are making that motion
I will second it.
and that is who, okay, that's
Reverend
Reverend
Natasha Stewart.
Okay, let me call the roll. Okay. Ms. Dre,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Vice Chair Secor,
Yes.
and Ms. Yassin.
Yes,
Okay, wonderful. Discussion creation of initial list of proposed recommendations for first quarter. Now, and there is a document in Slack that it looks like Some of the suggestions from last meeting were added as potential recommendations for our presentation to the select board. But I just want to take like 2 minutes, just throw some things out that people are thinking of for recommendations, because we have one more meeting before that select board meeting. So can we just, someone record a list of low-hanging fruit or initial recommendations that we might make unrelated to, you know, our questionnaires and things for the first quarter meeting? Just like 2 minutes of just throwing things out for review at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll start, Nikki. I think we've discussed some of them. You know, one is Bob developing a handbook for town employees, right, Bob? I don't want to mischaracterize it. That would go into these policies and potential repercussions if somebody were to, you know, do something or say something. So that's A, I think, right, Bob? Did I just make that up?
No, that's right.
That's right. Okay. And then I think going back to the last meeting, I really like the recommendation someone from the community had about reviewing public bathrooms in the town and public buildings. I think that's an easy thing we can ask the select board to review. And then I think, sorry, I'm just speaking for Bob tonight, apparently, but I know Bob also had discussed, because you and others had asked about wage data, both by gender and department, and I forget if it was also by race, Bob, but that's something that he can pull and share. And I think that's a huge win for the town of Scituate to publicly, you know, release its wage data across departments. And that's something that, you know, Bob and others can do here. So I think those are three very quick things we can discuss and move forward on.
Thank you, Ms. Risha. Anyone else? Things you'd like to see, recommendations that you want to throw out?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's important to provide recommendations to the board, but it's also important to give them just an update of other projects and things, initiatives that we have. So, you know, the youth committee, the, you know, the other, you know, just a status on what we're working on as well.
Yes, I think that obviously, yeah, we definitely need to include that. And I think at the next meeting, we can talk about what that that looks like and who's going to do it.
We also discussed at the last meeting that all town meetings should have some sort of safe space norm. So we could recommend that they throw that out to other committee meetings and town meetings. And the other thing was that the select board would share any upcoming decisions with us that might include issues of diversity so that we could advise them, as is our title, so that they can.
This is good. This is a great list. Anything else?
I think too, Nikki, Stephanie had mentioned, you know, the cultural component and what do we celebrate and acknowledge in Scituate. And while she didn't call out anything specific, just something on my mind, and I would love for other people's thoughts on this, but obviously St. Patrick's Day is tomorrow, but also planning ahead for the select board in June, there's Juneteenth, which is now a state holiday. So are we doing, or can we recommend doing something as a town to acknowledge that, where everybody would be invited? But that's something that we could recommend and plan for starting now, even if it's in June.
And Celia, to further that, I had a note that I also am not gonna quite get the words right, but someone was talking about letting tourists know the places that are inclusive here in town with, you know, flags or something like that. So again, it's a bit of an event, so I'm not exactly sure what the right sort of way of doing it, but getting businesses or what have you to put a little symbol in their window or fly a flag or whatever it is. Some sort of initiative in that way from the town to encourage the people that are visiting us to know we're an inclusive community.
Great. I would add town meetings that are focused on these issues specifically. and as a way to encourage community engagement by the town. I think that would be a anyone else? I think this is a good solid list to start with. We can add at our next meeting. So I'm gonna move us along. Thanks for, this is a solid list. And I hope that we add more at next meeting. So hopefully you'll keep this in mind as you think about what our first recommendations should be. Update on Slack use. Who's that?
I think we talked about a couple of things in again, a recent subcommittee meeting. One was that people had put things in Slack and assumed that people were getting notifications on it. I know I was not. Are other people getting notifications if something goes onto Slack? No, so that I think one can't assume that that is happening. Also, I believe Maura is not on Slack. Is that so, Maura?
That's true.
So that means that everything should be sent to all of us via an email. If you expect somebody to see it, and again, I really like being able to see things before a meeting. It really helps me to get a feeling. I know that when I see written material, somehow it goes in better for me. So if you want something considered at a meeting, to send that out rather than just assume, or you can say, well, if you say go to Slack, you've still lost Maura, but maybe put it in Slack if you want to, because that's a great way for us to keep it there. That's a nice thing so that Angela doesn't have to put everything in, but if you've developed a document, send it out to everybody and put it in Slack so that people will have access to it later.
I got notification that we have to pay for Slack. Is that true?
I saw that our
No.
standard is going, but I think that means we can't do other fancy things, but I don't know if we're doing any of the other fancy things. Angela, do you know?
Yeah, we're not doing any fancy things. It's just
So, yeah.
open the documents. Yeah.
Okay.
That may be why you're not getting notifications.
One other point, if somebody posts something, would you please not respond to it? We can't wave, we can't thumbs up, we can't do anything. So if somebody posts something, you have to let it lie there, which is hard because we're used to being responsive. But that's one of the things for open meeting law. We cannot respond to somebody else's posting. So post it and then it just sits there. It's okay. Okay, so that's kind of my update. Anybody else on Slack?
No, just that people can adjust their own settings if they do wish to receive email
Right.
notifications.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to do it, but for now, I mean, I'll probably, if I'm gonna post something, I'll do both. I want to put it on Slack just because it's almost like a repository
Right.
of information, but I'll also email it.
Yeah, maybe you guys should decide on a day. So if the meetings are on Tuesdays, that anything that you all want to review should be posted and shared by the prior Friday or something, or when you post the agenda, at least to give you all time to look at it. So I know that happens to
Yeah.
us as a board. Sometimes we get things really late and it's hard to give it the attention it deserves. So you might want to consider a day to all agree on when to share that information for discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Friday before the next meeting is a good idea. Does anyone else have a problem with that?
No.
Okay, is that it for Slack? Okay. All right, discussion, proposed requirements for project and or subcommittee acceptance. Vice Chair Secor. Now, I want to remind you that if this is a longer discussion, it's 8:23.
I'm gonna talk really fast.
Okay.
I'm gonna try. And you know what? We've already kind of attacked a lot of this tonight, almost inadvertently, I think, maybe. So this was a document that I put together really because of the last few meetings where we've had things up for a vote for subcommittees, and Nikki, your email that you sent out, describing just a basic charge for the youth subcommittee and the subcommittee on incidents based in bias went a long way towards what I wrote up, if that makes sense, right?
Yes,
So the whole idea behind this was to say, okay, we're teeing up really good ideas, but we don't have anything written up, so it's hard to vote. We don't really know who's going to chair the subcommittees. So again, is it really going to get life even if we vote yes? So this was, me again with process, but basically just trying to streamline some type of step-by-step process. And like I said, it doesn't have to be some huge document, but just a one pager or less to just say, this is what I want to do. This is how we're going to do it. And this is who's going to work on it. And we can move things to a vote quicker than we have in the past. So I think we can
I would
table
only
this,
add that. Mhm.
For next meeting, if we want to vote on it or not, or it's on Slack, I can email it just so you guys have it. But I think, tonight alone, we've gotten a lot done, I feel.
Yeah, we did get a lot done tonight. I would only add the mission statement and draft charge, because I think that was pretty helpful with getting some initial language down and I based my charge on what our charge is. So hopefully people will follow that. Okay, so this is good. We cannot vote on this tonight. We did not make an announcement that we would do that. So let's consider it and add it to the agenda to vote on next time. Okay. Are there any more comments on this process? Okay. Discussion use of DEI project planner to monitor proposed and ongoing projects. Ms. Yassin and Ms. Dre, I will remind you that it is 8:27. But and remind people also that discussion and kind of presentation of this is this week, and discussion and vote would be the next meeting. So take it away, Ms. Yassin and Ms. Dre.
Okay, I'm trying to screen share. And again, I've got that whole part where that whole top thing is just way too big. So just a second. Okay, close that. Okay, that's better.
There you go.
Does it need to be bigger?
It's good.
Yeah, because I think I can make it a tad.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So again, goals overview is just our goals. Okay. What this really is looking at is kind of following up on what Tom was talking about, is that starting to clarify what are we actually doing and what are we thinking about doing. So these were things that we have discussed and said, yeah, we want to be active with this. And so it pulls out what goal is it reaching? This is engagement and education. Research and develop a proposal for a sister city project. This is when we talked about it. This is active, completed, or rejected. When would it be done? Obviously not yet. And you haven't yet presented it. Angela is the point person, as we talked about, that you would have somebody who kind of committed that they are kind of running this. And then, just a second, priority, just cause. And then, what are we doing with this? Looking at to do so that we have something to kind of work towards. And these milestones get developed as you start working. They really aren't all there. They just kind of start coming. But you think you'd know what the first thing you're going to be doing, and then you can kind of move on past that. Our second thing is this talking about town personnel and the questionnaire that we're doing. The questionnaire is really part of this. And then what will we do after that? And then the third one is, again, working with Bob on some of these policy and procedure documents that he's working on. As of last time that I know of, that was what we had been talking about doing. And so I just captured it here, and we would continue to capture the other pieces as we do them. Then proposed projects. This is just a couple of the things that we had suggested last meeting alone. I would say that we have a lot of different things that are coming up. And truthfully, I think that we just created what I wrote down here as an equity task force.
I like that name.
Yeah, and you can change your name to it, but that's just from what Craig had said last time.
Mhm.
And so, you know, somebody else suggested quotas for town hiring, a diversity cultural center. Okay, all these we can't, but we could start writing these down, because I think sometimes we almost get paralyzed because there's so many great ideas out there. And there will become a time where we've got to say, this is a wonderful idea, I love it, but it's not happening yet.
Right.
And then in order to move it forward, you do have to have that person who says, yep, I'm taking this on and I'm willing to run with it. So I would love it if people would look this over. If you have suggestions for changes, this is all, I'm going to say, courtesy of Angela. She's the one who set this all started and showed me a really nice document, and I added a few things to it, and then I went back to her where she, you know, made me fix things around a little bit. But I think I really liked her idea, and so then I kind of went with that.
Can we add, I mean, I have a great handwritten list of the brainstorm that we did. I wonder if we can add those things. I don't know how much of it captured.
The brainstorm list, I have all of, I
Okay.
took notes on all of those.
Yeah, I wonder if we can
But-
add those to some of them
I
are.
don't know if I can, because those are not projects. The project, okay, ongoing projects.
Oh, ongoing projects.
Yeah, and so let's come back to that next time, and we could, because we can add this in. Then this goes into, once we approve that, which isn't today because we're not voting, but once we approve that, these things go into Slack. So consider, are these ongoing projects with a person who's, because these were some interesting suggestions that we had today, but I don't think all of those were actually things we have fleshed out well enough to say it's an ongoing project. So maybe some of those should be thought for next time. Like, if you're going to propose gender neutral bathrooms, is that what we're proposing, or you're going to get any further information? Is that enough? For that, it might be. For some other things, you might need more information. So just something to think about for next time also. So that's it.
Okay, comments, questions? This is something we will be voting on next time.
We're just going to be voting on the usage of this as a tool, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a tool, and, you know, obviously it can be revised. I mean, when Ruth and I spoke, I mean, some of the tabs were labeled differently, but we just wanted to be consistent. So ongoing project became proposed project. So when it will move from one tab to the other, but we can certainly add another tab for just, you know, general recommendations or, you know, input provided to us. I mean, it's a working document. So I think if we agree to use that, and it's on Slack, but we can email it as well as putting it on Slack.
Great.
Anyone else? Anything else? Okay. New business, do we have new business? I feel like we've addressed things. Other business, is there anything else anyone would like to discuss?
Nikki, I did feel that I should mention to people that you have asked to take over the agenda preparation totally. And so to let people know that you want to do that. And so I would suggest that, again, people who have suggestions for agenda, as we've talked to tonight, send that suggestion out in advance. One assumes it would need some backup information, so send it to the entire group. And a reminder, Nikki, that to do the agenda, it needs to be posted to Town Hall by noon, or at least this is Nora told me, the Thursday before.
Yes.
And then when
So-
you do that, I would then be able to post it on the website, unless you would like to do that also.
No, that's fine. So the other thing is, our agenda is not going out in the town emails with the other agendas. So people that are on the email to receive committee agendas aren't getting ours, and I don't know why that is.
I don't know.
They
either,
might need to
because-
go and check it off because we're a new committee, Nikki.
Okay,
And
Yeah,
especially with the name change, the people who signed up before
Yeah.
might have gotten thrown off.
okay.
Because I am very careful to choose notifications when I click through the pieces that I have to click through.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, thanks. I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning that.
but I'll double check too with Mike, or Bob, I don't know if you can double check with Mike, because now that you say that, I don't get all agendas, so, I'm just trying to think what announcements I'm signed up for.
Yeah.
I'll double check with IT tomorrow.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah,
Bob.
maybe we fell off some other list when we changed our name too.
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll figure that out. Maybe one of you, we can add that to future agenda items. Okay. Anyone else, anything else? And if not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful.
Everyone's second.
And I will call the roll. Ms. Risha,
Yes.
Vice Chair Secor,
Yes.
Ms. Yassin,
Yes.
Ms. Gray,
Yes.
Reverend Stewart,
Yes.
and myself, it's a yes. This was a very productive meeting. And I'm sorry that it took a very long time. I know from more than one of the committee members that is a concern, and we will work on that as we move through agenda items. But I'm very proud of us for this meeting tonight, and I'm looking forward to preparation for our first report to the select board at the next meeting. So it is 8:36 PM and the Scituate DEI committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.